Okay, this is the last example I'm going to have you look at. But what I want to do is I want to remind you of how to find the slope without doing the rise over run, because there are some times where we have no graph to look at. Okay, so let's just imagine we have these 2 points. All right, so let's say they just set. Let's say they give me the point 3, 1, and the point -3, -1. Okay, and they say you need to find the slope using these 2 lines. Well, remember the slope formula we came up with, and that was P2 minus R2 divided by P1 minus R1. So let's call this one P up here and call this one R. Okay? So P2, remember, if you remember, would be the second. So this would be P1 and P2, and this would be R1 and R2. So let's go ahead and fill this in. P2 would be 1. All right, so right here, and I'm going to subtract R2, which would be here. It's just -1. So 1 minus -1. And then P1 is right here is 3, and I'll be subtracting a -3. So if I do this math, 1 minus a -1 is the same as 1 plus 1, so that would be 2. 3 minus a -3 is the same as 3 plus 3, which would be 6. So my slope equals 2 over 6, which when simplified is 1/3. All right, so now let's go ahead and double check. Did we do this correct? So let's check our rise over run. So it does in fact look like if I go up 2 and over, oops, sorry for that crooked line, 6, 2 over 6 is what we got. So don't forget that we can use the slope formula if they just give us 2 points and no graph. Now the process is the exact same. I substitute my m into the equation. All right, so that's 1/3. I choose one of these coordinates. Let's go with 3, 1. So 3 would be my x and 1 would be my y. So I have 1 equals 1/3 times 3 plus b. Okay, well, what's 3? 1/3 times 3 is just 1, right? Because 1 times 3 is 3. 3 over 3 is 1. So I've got 1 equals 1 plus b. And if I subtract 1 on both sides, I get b equals 0. Now, luckily, we can see, based on our visual graph here, that b does, in fact, go through the origin, so it is, in fact, 0. So my equation now, with my slope and my y-intercept, would be y equals 1/3 x. And I could write plus 0 to represent 0 as the y-intercept, but that is not necessary. So the key thing to remember in this example is if they give us 2 points and no graph to look at, we can use the slope formula to figure out what that slope is.